Hello, hello. Welcome to Anathema. My name is Lauren. I'm so happy to have you here. A big thank you, especially to everybody who is in the live chat right now. We are streaming on X, Facebook, Rumble, Kick, and Twitch. So, hey, everybody. Hope your week is going well so far. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'm considering not streaming to Facebook anymore, trying to consolidate now that we've been, I guess, airing the show for a little bit. Not a lot of people watch on Facebook. Is it worth just getting rid of Facebook and saying, hey, if you want to watch live, you either got to go like probably X, Kick, or Twitch or Rumble? I don't know. I don't have the answers here. But aside from that, if you're an audio only person, big reminder that we are available as a podcast, basically any podcast platform you can think of. So yeah, just as on Kick, bangs are back. Had some bang love in the chat. So Mctronic Man on Twitch, not reaching the boomers on Facebook. Facebook, I don't understand Facebook. I will be the first to say that. You know, I've been on X a while. I feel like I know how to get traction on X. I know what sells. I know what the people want to see. Facebook, I think it's because I'm not a big Facebook person myself. If I'm on social media, I'm either on most likely X, maybe Instagram, perhaps TikTok. I don't know what's happening on Facebook. Facebook is a different world. I have a good number of followers on there, and I have posts sometimes that do okay, but I don't know. Is live streaming not really as much of a thing on Facebook? Redacted 9847 right on time. Yeah, apologies for being late. Unironically, most times when I'm late, it's because I don't know what to do with the bangs. It's because I'm struggling. Not a hairstylist. I've never been very good. Yeah, and the thing is, my hair doesn't look good unless I put effort into it. I have curly hair, so curly and bangs don't look good. I did one short one time where I didn't style my bangs. Overwhelmingly negative feedback. So yeah, I try to fix them. So we have a lot to talk about aside from my hair and my tardiness. Elliot Page actually has a new documentary out where she's the narrator. It's about the LGBTQ animals out there. So gay, trans, animal documentary. That is what Elliot Page is promoting right now. So again, I'm not a studio executive. I'm not a marketing genius, but if I were, whatever as Universal, I don't know, whatever studio has funded the Odyssey, I would actually have it in the actors' contracts that you need to do promotion for the film as part of your fee. And built in there, there's like a non-compete. And there are some guidelines where if you are in front of cameras talking about the Odyssey, you cannot simultaneously be pushing other projects. That might be considered controversial because that's going to reflect badly on the movie. Great example of this we're also going to go over is a John Leguizamo, whatever. He's for some reason on the side quests to promote Latin American racial grievances while doing press for the Odyssey. Is this how you draw people in to see your like hundreds of millions of dollar huge blockbuster? Probably not. Probably not. I don't know why Christopher Nolan is okay with this. It is a similar thing with Elliot Page. Elliot Page is doing a lot of interviews right now. In addition, I guess, to the Odyssey stuff, also plugging this gay animal documentary. So we're gonna look at that. It's not being reviewed kindly so far. And then, of course, the Odyssey is launching this week. It's released. Early showings start this Thursday. So tomorrow, Papa Chen and I, we're going to go see the earliest thing that we could find. And we will be here Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, to give you our review of that. I'm excited. It's been a big lead up to this movie. I don't know what we're going to talk about once it's already out. But we're going to do our review for you. And, oh, yes, Rand Paul, there's a fraud hearing in the Senate with Nick Shirley testifying. Democrats are just not showing up. I guess it's okay to just say we don't care about fraud if we're Democrats. I don't know. I feel like fraud should be nonpartisan. If you're talking about taxpayer dollars literally just being embezzled disproportionately by foreigners, this isn't even like a Doge thing where I think most of Doge spending probably is fraud, but the leftist argument is, oh no, those transsexuals in Guatemala need this money. Okay, I understand there's a difference of opinion there. Everyone should be on board that fake daycares are bad. I don't even understand what the argument against Nick Shirley is here. And Amy Coney Barrett. So Trump's Supreme Court pick to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of course, a woman, She's now in an interview come out and described how fearful of her life and her family's lives are she is as a result of all the leftist backlash. Now, does this compromise her rulings? I kind of feel like yes, it does. I mean, if you're openly talking about how you're living in fear because of retribution from the left, I feel like you are probably not the best judge to be on the Supreme Court. Now, critics say we should be focusing our attention on the people who are threatening the judges, not the judges themselves. We can talk about both. Obviously, it's wrong for leftists to be threatening people using violent rhetoric and just straight up intimidation in order to get their way politically. But we've been kind of ringing the alarm bells on that for almost 10 years now, and nothing's changed. So I think the least we could do if you're a conservative is try to put forward a justice officials who actually are able to stand up to the left. Yeah. Sign us on Rumble. Fraud is part of our government. Fraud is part of government, period. I'm struggling to think of a government that's not full of fraud. I don't think it exists. That's one of my main issues with government. It's not a uniquely American problem, but the problem with the American government is because of its sheer size and scope and enormous budget, it's a lot easier to hide fraud in a massive giant project. It's harder for fraud to exist when there's only like 10 people and you have a budget of like $30. You're not going to be embezzling huge amounts of that. But when the scope and scale is so big, that's how you end up hiding things. Electronic Man, both Barrett and Kagan testified for more security funding to Congress. I don't have a problem with that. But I guess it shouldn't just be, oh, we just need more security. The people who are making these threats, where is the FBI on that? Right? I mean, making threats to elected officials, politicians, judges. I feel like that's a legitimate use of the FBI, not, raiding James O'Keefe. These people who are threatening, they're actual domestic terrorists. Why don't we address that? Unknown Sentry. I doubt there is fraud in North Korea. I don't know. I don't feel like the North Korean government is probably a bastion of transparency. C Warner 312, ACB looked clearly frazzled when she spoke on it. Hate to say, but she's emotionally compromised to do the job. I don't want to make it seem like I'm victim blaming here. Obviously, I'm not saying I could do any better. I'm not saying that it's not a terrifying situation to be in if you're Amy Coney Barrett, but that doesn't change the fact that the job needs to be done. It's like when we have all of those, and I've talked about this before, footage of female security guards or cops when danger arises, instead of going to stop it, shielding themselves, cowering in fear. That's an understandable response. That's probably what I would do. I'm not someone who is going to try to tackle a gunman. However, knowing that, I'm also not someone who's going to say, hey, I want to try to be a police officer. I want to try to be a security guard because I know that I'm not suited for that. And it's kind of telling in our times where when to be a judge, you need to be able to stand up to these violent leftists and stand by your convictions. But like that is the reality. And so knowing that doesn't really seem like, a mom in her 50s or 60s is the right person for the job. I'm sorry. Maybe that doesn't make me a good feminist, but I'm okay with that. Axel Foley, thank God the pro-life lobby that threw Nick Sandman, Steve King, and countless others under the bus got their girl ACB to the court. Yeah. C1 312, the irony of Congress demanding more security, yet denying left-wing violence existing. And that's kind of, this is a black pill, but it was also accurate. One of the ways that I knew that birthright citizenship was going to go against Trump and his executive order was that leading up to it, remember leading up to the Roe versus Wade decision, they put all of these gates, these barriers at the Supreme Court. They had all the security outside. They didn't do any of that leading up to the announcement of the birthright citizenship case. And so that's how I knew that the left wasn't going to be rioting. Like you can kind of tell how the Supreme Court is ruling. Like mark this next time that there's a controversial ruling coming up based on whether they are bracing for riots. Yeah. Coutrang, yep, no security increase. It's true. It's true. It's true. Use bookmark this, come back to it. It's actually, it's kind of like a very, very depressing way to play Nostradamus. Okay, so let's talk about Elliot Page. So it turns out that Elliot Page has this new documentary where she's a a producer, and the narrator. So it's called Second Nature: Gender and Sexuality in the Animal World. Who is asking for this? Probably nobody but Elliot Page. Jay Maloney's 1976 Ellen. Yes, I'm aware that this is Ellen Page. I'm already probably asking for trouble by quote misgendering, but it's hard. It's one thing if like the trans person is actually putting effort into quote unquote passing. It's natural to refer to someone who looks like a woman as a woman. Doesn't mean that they really are one, but it's just, it feels natural. But someone like Elliot Page, it's like, bro, you're not, I'm sorry. You could be trying, but it's just like you are 5'1" soaking wet. I like 100 pounds. Just dance. It's a chick. We don't play games over here. Everybody knows it's a chick. You're like, it's a chick. Anyway, so there's this documentary, and Elliot Page has been doing the rounds promoting it. And I actually wasn't aware of this documentary, but I was seeing a lot of videos pop up on my feed of Elliot Page talking about gay animals. And at first, I was just bookmarking them like, hey, we're going to talk about this. We're going to make fun of this. But then it actually occurred to me, hang on, why is there so much of a conversation surrounding gay animals? Because there were several different documentaries, several different interviews where Elliot Page is talking about this. I could tell because, wearing different clothing and all that. And so I actually bothered to look into it a little more deeply. And it's because of this documentary. Elliot Page is trying to promote this documentary. Okay, so here we have, some of the interviews that I'm talking about. From Ollie London, transgender actress Elliot Page claims it's, quote, absurd that people think animals
absurd
here and LGBTQI+. All right, let's take a look at this.
As in terms of looking at nature as if it's some sort of cis heteropatriarchal structure is absurd, and that this gender binary that we've created is nothing but a quaint little myth. And I think her work and this documentary really shows that what we have been taught in school in regards to these structures, men being superior, women being inferior,
Who's teaching that? Like, what school did Elliot Page go to? Like some sort of, I don't know, an Afghan madrasa where they're just being taught no one's being taught that, okay? It's not that women are inferior to men, unless you're talking about specifically, I don't know, strength, then yeah. But you could tell so what this documentary is clearly, this is a case of, when you have a hammer, everything is a nail. Elliot Page has clearly gone down the path of just being brainwashed by the trans lobby, just obsessed with gender ideology. And so now she sees it everywhere, to the point where you now have to project this onto the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom isn't some, cis hetero patriarchy. Trans animals? What? Okay, like there are barely trans people, to be clear, up until 10 minutes ago. So no, there's not trans animals. I don't know. You're projecting. This is like documentary projection.
Submissive or what have you, it being this, heterosexual existence.
I love the laugh. You're like, oh, so you expect animals to be heterosexual? Newsflash, like 99% of people are heterosexual. Okay, yeah. Electronic man, my dog would hump anybody's leg, man or woman. That's unironically, that is probably the evidence that these documentary filmmakers are using to show, like, see, we can see here that this female or that this male dog humping another male is clearly an expression of homosexuality. And we also see that this female dog actually is not being a very good mother, probably trying to reject the oppressive patriarchal structures that would dictate she actually be the primary caregiver. No one wants to watch this. Nobody here. The documentary has, by the way, a 3 out of 10 on IMDb. I tried to look up its Rotten Tomatoes score, and there is no scores either from critics or the audience on Rotten Tomatoes. Batman voice. No, this is my Elliot Page transgender voice. And ever since I saw that video of the detransition rate, well, it lives in my head, discussing how her speaking is pain for her all the time now, because when you take testosterone as a female, yes, it enlarges your vocal cords and it makes your voice sound a little bit deeper, but it actually enlarges them to the point where they no longer fit like in your throat comfortably. Because we're women and we're meant to have like women-sized vocal cords. So now it's always painful for this detransitioner to talk. And now when I hear someone like Elliot Page who's done the same thing, all I'm thinking of is that I can actually hear the discomfort while speaking.
Distance is just completely false. And I think what's so wonderful about this documentary is it really illustrates, why that information has been so suppressed, and how important it is for us to all learn about this, and how it's only expansive and exciting, all of this information.
I want to go to the golden.
Wait, I want to listen to that part about the was it quaint fantasy about the heteronormative, whatever she said.
In terms of looking at nature as if it's some sort of cis heteropatriarchal structure is absurd, and that this gender binary that we've created is nothing but a quaint little myth. And I think
I mean, okay, so this is like clearly Elliot Page trying to find validation wherever possible, including the animal kingdom. Let's look at the trailer for this film. So yeah, 5 months ago, 11,000 views. Clearly, I'm sorry, not a huge demand for this type of material. And you could tell how just blatantly astroturf this whole trans agenda is. Okay, so trailer on YouTube, 5 months, 11,000 views, 198 downvotes, only 142, period. Not even 142. It's 142 upvotes. No one wants this film. This is uninteresting to the vast majority of people. And yet Elliot Page is like doing all of these media interviews. Why? Like, if you're an independent filmmaker who's not Elliot Page promoting like gay animals, there's no way you're getting on ABC to talk about your film. And even with all of the AstroTurf promotion, it's still not interesting to people. Axel Foley, lots of cannibalism in the animal kingdom. Yeah, since when? It's only when we're talking about like gay stuff where we use the animal kingdom as some sort of moral arbiter. Yeah, there's animal kingdom, there's eating your own kids, there's just straight up murder, there's rape. Not a good thing to base, I would say, morality off of. Okay, so let's watch this trailer.
There are approximately 8.7 million living animal species on Earth.
It's interesting also, like, keep in mind, this is Elliot Page post-transition. The voice still sounds female to me. Like, it's especially, like, without seeing an individual who has, like, short hair trying to pass as male, it's just blatantly obvious this is a female speaking.
For centuries, we have been told that when it comes to gender and sexuality, all these millions of species follow a certain set of rules. But what if this narrative fails to capture the full spectrum of life's diversity?
Homosexual behavior in nature.
I love how they just like, here's a deer humping another deer who looks male. So, take that, patriarchy. Like, what?
Is one of the best kept secrets. Is absolutely everywhere.
Not only do many species illustrate homosexuality and gender multiplicity, they also illustrate.
Okay, so clearly that individual is trans. So I don't think anybody denies that like a male might try to hump another male dog or animal. This type of behavior is also tied into like dominance. You're proving your dominance over another male, kind of like prison culture. The idea that this is at all similar to how, I don't know, gay humans act is I don't know, it's actually kind of offensive. I'd be offended if I were gay.
Straight sex.
Look, this dog is humping this other dog, Greg. He's just like you. Like, what? How is this pro-gay?
Transition.
Biologists now know sexuality is fluid and that all of that is normal.
I don't know any.
This is like, this is just so much cope. It's so much cope. Like the dog can hump as many other male dogs as he want. Hope homeboy's having a good time. Doesn't change the fact that reproduction happens with males and females.
Species where homosexual sex or gender non-conforming is a taboo or cannot be done, except when it comes to humans.
Yeah, homosexual sex is not taboo when when it comes to animals, because animals don't have taboos, period, because it's an animal. This is insane. Like, this is the type of material where if USAID were still kind of like up and running, this would be everywhere. This would be millions of views, AstroTurf to no end. Right now, they're just relying on the mainstream media, and there's only so much the corporate press can single-handedly do without those USAID bucks.
There have always been scientists who have been willing to stand in opposition to the existing worldview, and there are consequences for that.
I was completely unprepared as a scientist to deal with this.
We learned what we learned in school and we want to believe that it's true, and it's messy to now say, oh, it wasn't really that way.
I realized.
Oh my gosh, this is just so much confirmation bias. Like, all of these different, they clearly activists breaking down to which, isn't it because the alpha doesn't allow them to mate with females? Yeah. However cis hetero patriarchal you think humans are, most animals are much, much worse. Most animals, it's like, okay, I'm the alpha male. I have my harem. Okay, I am killing the other male's offspring. By the way, lions do that. Like, if there's a new male that comes in, he defeats the old one. He just kills and like eats the other lion cubs. So however toxically masculine you think humans are, animals are worse. By the way, look up gorillas. That 94.7, yeah, animals eat their own young and their own poo. We shouldn't be comparing animal behavior to humans. And that's why I've addressed Elliot Page before critically, and have these people like, leave her. They would say, leave him alone. He's so brave. He's just living his truth. No, okay. Elliot Page is not just some private individual trying to, live their best life. They're an activist. He's whatever. Elliot Page is an activist, okay? She's out here funding and promoting this type of LGBTQ nonsense for animals. Also big pusher of trans kids. So yeah, she deserves criticism.
It can't be the people who are defective. It's got to be the science.
If we understand same-sex behavior better, we're also going to understand different sex behavior better. We're just going to understand the sexual lives of animals better.
There is endless diversity in nature, and the old stories we've been taught deserve a second look.
Oh my gosh, okay, yeah, 0 comments. Oh my goodness. So yeah, there's another teaser as well. This one has 4.4. Okay, so they've been trying to make this for a while. I think it only came out like last year. I don't know if it has general distribution yet, but this teaser trailer from 2 years ago has 4.4 thousand views. So 4,000 views. This stream is going to get more across the socials. Here, downvote. Yeah, comments are turned off. I bet they are. So project's going well. It's going good. I don't believe they will likely make their money back. And these researchers who are like just clearly LGBT activists, how do you survive that? Yes, I'm a researcher. My field of study is homosexual relations between bonobo monkeys. Why? Okay, but we have more clips of transgender actress Elliot Page promotes her new nature documentary teaching kids animals can be gender fluid and LGBTQI+. This is why we'll attack Elliot Page. Get your gay animal documentary away from kids. Let's watch this.
It is so exceptional in sharing this information that we did not learn in school about gender and sexuality in the natural world, and follows Joan Roughgarden, a brilliant evolutionary biologist who wrote Evolution's Rainbow, as well as other scientists.
Evolution's Rainbow. Is there perhaps a chance that this individual could be a little bit biased? Also, I don't know if you're listening as a podcast, you may have missed the fact that most of the quote unquote scientists that this documentary interviews are clearly LGBTQ and like activists themselves. Yeah.
Researching and doing this incredible work and sharing this information. And the doc is not just deeply informative, it's also so funny and warm and inviting and expansive. And I really hope you get a chance to see it. And if you're not in New York or an area with screenings, you can also set up your own screening. So if you go to the Second Nature website, please reach out. Okay.
All right. We got more transgender Hollywood actress appears frail and unwell. Okay, this is an older clip, but I think it's relevant. Here she is describing how upsetting it is to be misgendered. And like that's why this documentary is just cope. Clearly, this is a person obsessed with gender ideology. They're just trying to like legitimize it however they can.
Absolutely. And I think, still being early on in my transition, of course, but like more used to it now. I think at first, when you first come out as trans, you're like, oh my God, all these situations you find yourself in, and maybe you just, I guess, progressively kind of get used to it.
There's a very powerful scene in the film where Sam's mum misgenders him. And actually, interestingly, he is kind of trying to make her feel more comfortable in that situation. I just wondered whether you think that's quite common for LGBTQ plus people.
Very common. Yeah. Like if someone, misgenders me and out of just, like, you can tell when something's like intentional and awful. There's another thing, like it's not a big deal, it's, oh, sorry, fix it, you move on. It's really not. If someone keeps doing it consistently over and over again, that's a different conversation.
In society, we have quite a straitjacket of what we're supposed to be. I know you've spoken about this in Hollywood as well,
Yes, and for cishet people, of course, as well. And that's why I'm like, oh my God, why can't we all just connect on this, right? We're all just inundated from the moment we're born. Some people even have parties before that about
the gender reveals.
Exactly.
Yeah, so like she's obsessed with gender, and so she's assuming everybody is, but this is mental illness. The average like healthy person does not make an entire identity around their gender. They just pursue their own likes, their life, their career, however they dress, and it's just it's second nature. It's not something to obsess over. It's not a performance. JST DeAndre, let's connect while calling you the cishet slur. Yeah, but and that's the thing. Elliot Page doesn't actually want to connect with people who think differently, or it's just connect with people who are willing to just affirm her. That's what it's all about.
I hope for anyone who's sort of, struggling in this time and the headlines and just to know like that you're, not alone and loved and celebrated by so many, and try and block out the noise from, absolute vile losers who must just be so profoundly uncomfortable with themselves they can't handle that someone could get to a place that I think, that, trans people do get to.
And that's the thing. Here.
Which is a level of self-acceptance and understanding that I think is really...
So the hypocrisy of calling people who call her out or the transgender out just like uncomfortable with themselves. We're not the ones who are funding entire projects to try to affirm and validate our choices. We're not the ones who are doing interviews about how it feels when someone misgendered. Like, if there is a person who seems more uncomfortable in their own skin than Elliot Page, I have yet to meet them. Like, this actually seems like it's a pathology at this point. And like I've said before, comfortable. Okay. I have sympathy for Elliot Page insofar as I do think there was probably some sketchy, shady Hollywood BS that went on early on, probably when she was even still a kid. Because I people don't really talk about it. She was a child actor. I don't know what kind of parent you have to be in 2026 to still let your kid like be in Hollywood around these weirdos, but this was Elliot Page's upbringing. I'm sure like there's actual real trauma there, but like the gall of calling other people uncomfortable with themselves, like no. No, 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 no. All right. Hypocrisy. And then I mean this is not really related to the documentary, the gender issue, but it's like whoever is styling Elliot Page, clearly I think this is like intersexual competition, or if it's just like some progressive woman or like a gay guy, they do not have Elliot Page's interests at heart. All these giant suits, again, Elliot Page is already like 5'1", probably 100 pounds. And whoever is dressing her like insists on putting her in these giant suits, which make her look even more comically tiny. Why? Elliot Page wearing her Protect Trans Kids hoodie. And so like, this is why we got to call Elliot Page out. You know, Elliot Page does not get a pass to spout toxic BS that will actually irreparably harm kids' lives just because she also happens to be a victim. See, 1 through 12, surely she can afford fitted tailored suits. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if she thinks it makes her look more masculine to have baggy clothes, but it doesn't. Like it's giving little brother wearing older brother's suit or little boy trying on dad's coat jacket.
And I wanted to take this opportunity to pull a couple of paperbacks from my shelf that I love.
Yeah, Protect Trans Kids. No, thank you, Elliot Page. Please stop trying to indoctrinate children. It's really weird how so many of these activists, like it's not just enough for them to do whatever they want as a consenting adult. You got to bring in the kids. Like it's also I have to make sure that kids are able to do stuff like this too. Oh my goodness. And it's like, you know, beyond the aesthetics of it, because like there's a lot of surgeries out there. Hormones are basically magical at this point. There are trans people who pass, but even just what Elliot Page is saying, this is like, these are not the thoughts, the considerations of 99% of men out there. Like you are still basically always crying about how you look and feeling insecure about your body. Like that's a woman thing. 100% you are a woman. But now let's go on to, I guess, Amy Coney Barrett a little bit before we get on to the Odyssey. So this is the clip that's kind of going viral right now. This is from Brianna Morello. Follow her if you don't. Amy Coney Barrett is discussing all the threats she's facing. It's sad and shouldn't happen, but this shouldn't be an excuse to cave. Her rulings have been out of character. If the threats or these threats are an issue for her family, she should step down now. What do you guys think? I happen to agree. And again, that's not to say, oh, well, we shouldn't do anything about the people who are issuing those threats. Like I said, FBI, where are you? You apparently have the time and the resources to monitor my communications for literally years. Are you saying it's impossible to track down the people who are threatening judges? Like what's that about?
So I thought I would just share a little bit about how the threats have affected me and my family personally. They have required me my children to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it. And I didn't know how to respond because maybe I lack imagination, but I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one.
Okay, but that's kind of naivete on your part. I'm sorry. And again, all the condemnation in the world to anybody. I hate violence. I abhor violence. Once more, FBI. Like this is actually a failure of the FBI. Let's be clear. The fact that politicized violence has become so normal in the United States, even if we're just talking about threats to the point where elected officials are actually living in fear of their lives, that's a failure on you guys. That is your job. And that I think is a real legitimate job that the FBI has to counter all of this stuff, but instead, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're sending agents to spy at PTA meetings. It's insane. It's insane. So yeah, you can't you can't be a right winger and make edgy posts on the internet. Otherwise, they're going to break down your door. But apparently, if you're a left winger, you can just threaten violence to a Supreme Court justice. And it's like, they're like, my hands are tied. Here's a bulletproof vest, I guess. But, I think Amy Coney Barrett, like, I'm not trying to make judgments on her as a mother. But like, if it were me, I probably wouldn't take a job like this because of not only the amount of time you have to spend away from your kids to be a Supreme Court justice, but also, yes, the position that it puts your family in. And like, I know it's unpopular to say that now because we're just supposed to be like girl bossing all the time, but there are actual like strains on a family that come when a member of the family serves a role like this. And I just I just don't know if it's the right choice for a family, for a mother who has young kids. 12 is still pretty young to go into a role like this. It's not like her kids are just in college and they're adults by them on their own, living their own lives. It's yeah. Justice on Kick, she straight up said she didn't understand the position it would put her family in. Not acceptable. Axel Foley, I remember Con Inc. was pushing this woman so hard back then, especially Walsh and Shapiro, insisting we have our own RBG. And that's the thing, like, think of how just reliable for the left RBG was and how people like Kagan and Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson are. Is there ever any doubt that they're going to rule like whatever the left says? No, of course not. It's like 9 out of 10 times, if not more than that, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this could help the left politically. Let's just do it. They don't care. They don't care about like, oh, well, how was this law supposed to be interpreted when it was written? Like that. No, none of that. It's just like, what can help the left most? Let's do that. Why are there why don't conservatives do that when they're judges? And I'm not even saying like it's necessarily a good, like ideally judges should just be there to fairly interpret the law to the best of their ability. But we're living in 2026. And that's the thing. Leftists nominate judges to be activists. Conservatives nominate justices to be fair. That's why we lose. That's why we lose. Dan 9847, what has she actually done to get death threats? I mean, they rolled back the Supreme, Roe versus Wade, right? So there is that. Necrotic Man, you're not watching the World Cup. I am very, very tuned out when it comes to sports. I've done everything I can possibly do to actually mute sports on my social media timelines. I'm just not engaged.
It's also been reported in the news that roughly 6 weeks ago, I was the victim of a swatting incident. At that point, one of my teenage sons, opened the door to go out with friends and saw in our street, it was full of police cars who had responded to a false report of gunshots and raised voices in my home. I was very, very grateful that I had Supreme Court police outside my home because they were able to stop and meet with and explain to the county police that it had been a false alarm. And so the police did not actually attempt to enter our home. Many of us, me included, have received threatening anonymous deliveries designed to intimidate and harass us. They are often sent in the name of Judge Salas's son, who I think, as you mentioned in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is deceased because he was killed by a disgruntled lawyer who showed up at Judge Salas's home intending to kill her, but her son, 20 years old at the time, opened the door and took the bullet instead. Her husband, standing behind, was seriously injured. So I think the message on these deliveries being sent in his name is clear. As Justice Kagan said, federal judges across the country, throughout the judiciary, including the Supreme Court, continue to do their jobs without fear or favor, but the threat level is really high.
Yeah, I mean, listening to that, and it's heartbreaking. I don't condone, again, I hate violence, threats of violence. This is political intimidation. These are terroristic threats. Where is law enforcement trying to track down the people who do this? But do you think, after hearing her talk about her experience dealing with this, do you think that Amy Coney Barrett is somebody who is still able to give rulings based on, based on the merits of a case instead of trying to pander to leftist intimidators? That's what I like. What do you guys think? Am I reading too much into it? Because I don't think so. I don't think so. Plukester on Twitch, imagine needing to be armed every time you open your front door. I can't. Like I've had threats. I've had to, like, when the whole tenant thing was going on, I had to move because of violent threats, and it's terrifying for your family. And I just, I can't imagine. That's why I would never want to be a politician. I would never want to be someone high profile like this. Even like some of the more popular conservative commentators, people like Charlie Kirk, it's terrifying. It sucks that this is the world that we live in. But yeah, I mean, if you're Amy Coney Barrett, as someone pointed out in chat, she was a federal judge. It's kind of hard to believe that she didn't know that it could be like this. Anyway, so what does that mean? I mean, to be clear, even if she steps down, I don't have any hope that we would somehow get an actual conservative justice, because it's not really where the cookie tends to crumble. When you're a right winger, you don't really get a lot of W's, but I'm glad people are bringing this up. All right. So let's talk about the Odyssey again. Now, our journey covering this film is going to be coming to a close. The film actually releases like Friday, early showings Thursday. So going to see the film on Thursday. Papa 10 and I will have our review for you folks on Friday. But we've been covering this film for weeks now, if not months. I'll miss being able to hate on it with all of you folks. Thankfully, Hollywood, it's usually pretty generous in giving us things to hate watch. But let's talk about where the Odyssey actually sits now. So as people are reporting so far, keep in mind, these are just critics like the Access Media that has had special screenings of the film. Overwhelmingly positive from critics, the 98% score on the tomato meter. So critics are loving this thing. They're just like, yes, Christopher Nolan, more trans Greek soldiers, Black Helen of Troy. They are loving it. Jay Maloney, 1976, no Papa Chen movie review. No, Papa Chen, we will review it. We'll probably do something like we did with the Supergirl review. It's hard to get him like here when I'm live streaming just logistically. So we'll probably pre-record his part Friday morning or Thursday after the movie, and then we'll have it. Alonzo Musk, I heard it's actually good. So I am willing to reserve judgment for the actual film, right? I'm about to spend like probably 3 hours watching the thing and like 20 some bucks. I don't like wasting time or money. I hope it's good. I hope it is. I'm just not confident that it is. We'll go into reasons why. We've already been covering it, but I hope it is good. So yeah, right now, critically, it's being acclaimed. And also, yeah, film updates says that Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is projected to open with over $200 million at the global box office. Now, keep in mind, with stuff like Supergirl and Moana, we've been seeing openings in the 40 million range. So 200 million box office, that is a very, very strong opening, if true. And this is just anecdotal, okay? This is not like scientific by any means, but I will say we also went to go see the Supergirl early screening on a Thursday. Tons and tons of empty seats. We booked it fairly close to the date itself. So, like 2 days out, and there were still the majority seats being available for Supergirl. Not the case with the Odyssey. I booked our tickets probably like 3 weeks before opening, and already most of the seats were taken. We have not good seats at all. We're like in the corner, far back. So again, not scientific, but based off that, I do at the very least think that this is going to absolutely crush Supergirl's performance. Okay, so, I mean, going into this, it is looking like this film is not going to be bombing by any means. It's going to probably do really well, but there are still audience grumblings, right? And something can do really well critically and commercially, but still have vocal critics. And it kind of seems like this is going to be the case for this film, because now we have people who are kind of discussing IMAX, right? So if you've seen an IMAX film, it's like the giant screens, and it's more of a square aspect ratio, almost like what they used to do. And so people are now kind of, and Christopher Nolan is famous for loving IMAX. Most people are not going to see this film, though. And if you don't see it in IMAX, there's a lot of the film that you're going to miss. But as people are pointing out, only 40 cinemas on Earth could show what Nolan actually filmed. So apparently there are only 40 IMAX theaters, which it seems surprising to me. This just kind of seems like a pretentious move. Why are you filming something like this so that you know the vast majority of people are not going to be able to see? I heard someone say it's anti-art, it's anti-audience. I tend to agree. I mean, like, yeah, he's an auteur. He could do whatever he wants. Sure. But like, why not just film what you want, but then also like kind of zoom back so you also like film in the aspect ratio that we have? Why? Chizzy G269, it's like Dune. It looks expensive. Not good, not bad, just expensive. I mean, I think I like Dune. I don't think it's amazing, the best thing I've ever seen, but I liked it. I'll be seeing the third one in December. Okay, and so yeah, here we have John Leguizamo once more talking about like this whole South American representation thing. Why? Like, bro, he's at the Odyssey premiere and he's still talking about the side quest he has to address Latin American racial grievances. It's like, bro, number one is people have brought up, you are a Hispanic actor taking a role from a Greek actor. So you are right now in no position to complain about representation when you're actively robbing another group of representation, but also time and place. Like, does Christopher Nolan want your activism attached to this project? I would imagine no.
What's been your Odyssey in terms of fighting for your identity or your Hollywood career?
Well, it's always been.
And so obviously this is a leading question by the reporter, but you could just tell them to F off, basically, if you're an actor. And this is where media training should come in. Like, well, I've just filmed the actual Odyssey, so let me talk about that. Just do that. Just because a reporter asks you an annoying question doesn't mean you actually have to respond. So you can tell these people to go F themselves.
A battle. I mean, Hollywood is not the most accepting place, even though we Latin people are 30 to 40% of the box office and a third of streamers. We're still not represented. We're the most aggressively underrepresented group in America. So that's been my odyssey, to try to.
Hispanics are underrepresented in America? Really? Really? Who thinks that? Nitronic Man, Hollywood isn't the most accepting place. Yeah, I know. These people live in a fairy tale delusion world. It's just they are so out of touch. Reality just approaches nothing near them. Okay, not their day-to-day lives, not their political or social opinions. It's irrelevant. Okay, and people have also been, I think, rightfully criticizing the costumes. So here we have this is a still that went viral. Tom Holland and Bernthal, I forget what the name of Agamemnon or something. Anyway, this is supposed to be ancient Greece. It doesn't look good. Okay. And so people are comparing this expensive blockbuster film to this is what just like some random cosplayer might do. Looks so much better. Why do the Odyssey costumes look so bad? They look so drab and dull, lifeless and colorless. Right. And people have pointed out there's scenes where Telemachus, Odysseus' son, played by Tom Holland, he's wearing pants in the film. Again, who gave bro pants in the Odyssey in like 1000 BC? So they would not have been wearing pants, right? They would be wearing like togas and things like that. And so it's just really weird. I get Christopher Nolan, a director who's usually known for his autistic, and I mean that in the best way possible, devotion to historical accuracy. I mean, so much so where even in this film, he's like, no, I don't want to have a score because these instruments didn't exist in Greek times, but here we're whooping out pants and Black Helens of Troy. Why? I don't know. That's why. Okay, it's that kind of thing that makes me question this movie. I don't know. It kind of seems like the attention to detail that Christopher Nolan usually does, it was just misplaced here. I don't know. Oh, so Menelaus. There you go. That's his name. Menelaus. Here we have a contrast between what it looked like, the character's armor from Troy 2004. Looks good. right? Versus Odyssey 2026. Like, what is with this breastplate? I don't know. It looks like he's about to do CrossFit. Very strange. And it also, like, I don't know. It kind of seems like you can see the makeup line. It almost looks like he's wearing a ball cap, but I know he's not because he did shave his head. But it looks like the makeup is not blended. So it might as well be a ball cap because it just draws attention to the head. And people have also like brought up in terms of the cinematography, so gray. This movie is basically just dull and gray. If you actually like look at what ancient Greek depictions are historically and what Greece looks like now, it's full of color and vibrancy. So why do we have this gray, dull, dreary film? And Christopher Nolan has gone out of his way saying that, oh, it's because we need to it needs to be like relatable, which is like weird. So are you saying if there's color, it can't be relatable? Yeah, and so a more costume comparison. So again, this is what it looks like in the Odyssey. If you're just listening to this, it doesn't look good, basically. It looks like they're wearing like long sleeve shirts with cheap armor on top of it versus, yeah, costumes of a random Ulysses miniseries from Italy. And this actually looks good. Like, this looks so much more interesting. Just like you've got the texture in the background. Like, even the color grading is better because there's actually color. And these costumes, they looked lived in. Something that really bothers me is when costumes, you know, the wardrobe, you can tell it's never left the film set. It's only ever been worn on a soundstage. It looks too clean. It's not realistic. It doesn't look worn in or lived in. And I remember Game of Thrones, the early seasons, they actually put a lot of work into actually wearing out the costume. So, you know, they would beat it up, they would wash it, dry it, wash it, try to make it look worn and like someone could believably have been wearing this piece of clothing. I'm getting similar vibes from this. I don't like from this random Italian miniseries. I don't see that from the actual Odyssey stills. This looks really good. Props to the people who made this. This looks actually unironically better than the stills out of the Odyssey. Okay, well, here's Christopher Nolan commenting on it.
You could apply that to because we're very specifically going out looking for analog textures. Everything about this film is handmade. You know, I mean, we're literally shooting on film stock. We're cutting it together, gluing it together. You know, all of this. We're shooting on real boats and real seas and everything. And that's a particular texture. That's not the only way to make a film. And what AI will present is a lot of different options.
Okay, which is like fine. I love the attention to detail, the craft. But well, when you're bringing in Travis Scott to rap over your closing credits, which from all accounts is what he has done, like then why bother? Does that not take the audience out of it?
For filmmakers for a lot of different methods for using films, using a lot of different methods to make films and different types of films. We used every trick in the book on this movie, some old, some new. There's computer graphics, there's puppetry, there's animatronics, there's false perspective, there's really everything. And that's the fun of human creativity in filmmaking, is you're getting brilliant people together and giving them.
Yeah, in chat C1 through 12, I've never seen Nolan have to defend a movie so much. That's the thing. It's not even out yet. It kind of does feel like he at the very least understands people are not happy by and large with a lot of the choices he's made.
Yeah, looking for analog textures.
And so, yeah, here's a good post from George Alexopoulos addressing this. He says, Christopher, let me explain a concept in storytelling called suspension of disbelief. When audiences see a movie, they know it isn't real, but they are willing to pretend it is. In exchange, filmmakers have to promise not to break the illusion, either by accident or intentionally. For example, if Telemachus pulled up to Sparta wearing an Adidas tracksuit with a gold chain and a Honda Civic, it would cause the audience to remember they're in a movie theater. So when the film stops and non-Greek characters start rapping, we are no longer in ancient Greece filled with magic and adventure. We're back in modern day America, where we have taxes to pay, where you have work tomorrow, where life is ordinary. You, the filmmaker, are taking our money and reminding us of the very place we were trying to take a vacation from for a couple hours. The audience cannot suspend their disbelief when you go out of your way to remind them they're watching a movie. And this is exactly why it's jarring. It would be jarring, in my opinion, to see Elliot Page, people acting like they're supposed to be in ancient Greece, but here's this very clear trans individual. Like, oh yeah, this is not just a huge anachronism. Same with Black Helen of Troy. Dan947, isn't the press tour skipping Greece as well? Yes, actually, very much so from what I understand. Like there's no screenings or red carpet events in Greece. And I've seen Greek people complain about that because apparently this film got a handsome amount of money from the Greek government in terms of like subsidies, trying to attract, like subsidizing the filming of it. Parts of it were shot on location in Greece. And yeah, the Greek audiences have kind of been snubbed. Greek creatives have definitely been snubbed. Optimistic Realizer on Rumble. This looks like a Robin Hood movie, not an ancient Greece movie. Like, very much so. A lot of what they're wearing is medieval coded, which is like, this looks like Robin Hood, like the Menelaus. It's Robin Hood coded. Okay, so we also have Christopher Nolan on Defense talking about why the Odyssey uses modern English instead of, usually you have a period piece. They're going to be speaking with British accents. That is not the case. We watched earlier the Odyssey trailer. You have Robert Pattinson talking about Telemachus's "You miss your daddy," and then the infamous Matt Damon, "Let's go." This is ancient Greek for you.
The language as well is very modern. It's a very contemporary, easy to access way of speaking. I mean, you say dad rather than father.
Sure.
I mean, what's the thinking behind that?
Because I wouldn't have even said father back in the day, would I? I would have been in Greek, so it's no less correct.
People bring, when you look at this world, when you look at the ancient world, people tend to view it in weird ways. There's a lot of cultural prejudice. There's a lot of they're sort of elevating it because it's old,
Oh, he's talking about cultural prejudice, guys. I don't know about this.
Whatever it is. When you go to the poem, what you find is something that's really earthy and grounded and accessible. And so for me, in building the world of the film, what I talk to all the actors about is like, I want to center it on that and make it feel very fresh for modern audiences. And do away.
Oh, Christopher Nolan, not the modern audiences. For modern audiences. And so the biggest lie that Hollywood has tried to sell people is that modern audiences are fundamentally different from previous audiences. Like ultimately what people really care about, what they want to see are well-written stories that are relatable. And the mistake that Christopher Nolan makes here, that a lot of filmmakers and creatives nowadays make, is that they assume the relatability comes from superficial aspects like, hey, you said dad just like I do. I'm just like you. Oh, you're black just like me. This is so relatable. That's not, if you look at great art that transcends time and cultures, that's not what relatability looks like. What we really want to see is relatability in terms of the human experience. And there's a lot of that in the Odyssey. That's why, 2,000 years later, whatever, people are still talking about it. The relatability of trying to go home, a father's yearning to get back to his son, to his wife, a wife at home without her husband, without, her steadfast protector. She has to try to defend against all of these suitors. It's a great story. That is where an audience finds the relatability, not in just like, hey, I live in Detroit and this Odyssey looks like Detroit. This is so like me. No, that's lazy. That's lazy. And all that's going to do ultimately is going to date your specific piece of work. So Christopher Nolan, because you've insisted on making this the Odyssey 2026, bold 2026, by having Elliot Page, by having Black Helen of Troy, by having Travis Scott, people in 10 years from now are going to watch this and they're going to laugh because they're going to be like, oh yeah, remember how we were crazy about like trans people for a hot minute? Wasn't that ridiculous? Hey, remember how like USAID was astroturfing rap forever and we had to pretend like it was actually good? This is what your film is going to be remembered for, by the way, not as an actual meaningful contribution to the legacy of the Odyssey.
With some of those assumptions that aren't based on anything logical. They're just, as I say, cultural prejudices or things over time. There's a lot of stylistically, aesthetically, people tend to look back to the Romantic era in art. A lot of paintings where, people aren't wearing very much. They got a little bed sheet wrapped around them or whatever it is. And a lot of classical architecture, even though that wasn't the architecture of the Mycenaean period and things like that. So, we went back to what's in the archaeology. What does that tell us? And what gaps does that leave? What do we know about Homer's time? How were things portrayed in the earliest possible portrayals of that? And looking at how do you create a consistent and accessible world around that feels vital and credible. And
Okay, I mean, I doubt that he actually cared about things feeling vital and credible. Again, we've seen that with the casting. We've seen this with like the outfit choices. But yeah, I mean, the idea that Christopher Nolan here, his main concern is that stuff is accessible. Since when does Christopher Nolan care about things being accessible? This is the guy who did, Interstellar. He did Inception. Did he do Tenet? Is that him? Yeah, he did Tenet. Like this guy couldn't give two damns about accessibility, which is fine. Like create your vision. But I don't know why when it comes to this Greek work, now all of a sudden he's worried about catering to the audience. Very weird. Very weird. Yeah, Christopher Nolan has dismissed criticism branding his upcoming film The Odyssey as woke, calling the backlash irrelevant. These conversations that happen before people see the film, they're always irrelevant because no one having them knows what the film actually is yet. Okay, well, I think if you're going to call the film bad and you haven't seen it, that's fair. You can make a judgment as to what the film as a whole will be. But you can say that it's not loyal to the source material. You can say that, costume seems lazy. You can say that roles were miscast. You don't need to see the whole movie to understand that, yeah, putting Elliot Page and Lupita Nyong'o in this is probably kind of a middle finger to a lot of the audience. Yeah, him catering. And, this, 5 million views. A post of someone putting a GIF shooting a person who says the Odyssey will flop because it's are we not even allowed to disagree on movies now, or whether we like movies? And you could disagree with someone, but it's we have to LARP that we're going to shoot them in the face. Really?
A kind of zombie apocalypse that is brewing throughout the film. This mention of the Sea Peoples, who are based on history. There were people called the Sea Peoples who ended up destroying the great palaces of Mycenae and Pylos and so on, and go on to attack Egypt and Syria. But in the film, they're kind of very eerie and mysterious, aren't they? Like a kind of threat that is growing and growing over the course of the film. What was the kind of thinking behind that? Did you discuss that?
It is a really, really interesting idea because it isn't something that's necessarily explored in the poem, but this film is incredibly topical and relevant. And that particular plot point is super relevant. And I think it's something that, people will be really affected by when they see it. Are you talking to Chris?
No, in my dreams.
I wish you were, because you guys would have an amazing conversation.
Well, put in a word for me.
It's a really, really powerful moment in the movie. And it almost kind of shows how the Odyssey has grown over time, because they didn't have the means to communicate over borders or seas. Everything was word of mouth, and every story changes with every time it's told. And this myth of the people of the sea is such an amazing vehicle for tension throughout the film.
And then so Roman Helmet Guy, again, great account. Go follow him. He tweets in response to that, this movie is just endless rage bait. Odysseus and the other kings weren't terrified of the Sea Peoples. They were the Sea Peoples. Yeah. Yeah, Christopher Nolan explaining why everyone in the Odyssey has an American accent. What I want to do with this film was really take a modern audience and throw them into a very relatable world. That's also strange. Are we just writing off the Brits at this point? They don't qualify. You're not the audience. Sorry, we need to pander to the biggest box office possible. You guys ain't it. I don't know. Okay, so are you guys going to see The Odyssey? I would love to know. I think this movie probably will do well at the box office. It's Christopher Nolan. They've been pouring a lot into the marketing. I don't think it's going to flop, but I don't know. I'll reserve judgment. A lot of people are saying nope. Yeah. Jay Maloney, 1976. If you can last, Kenneth Branagh's 4-hour Hamlet is astonishing. Axel Foley just got my tickets. Okay, so we will reconvene here again Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see. Mctronic Man, they're going to start doing Chinese accents when that market opens up more. I previously, when I had my Mediaholic YouTube channel, I did an entire video about how China is affecting Hollywood films, because China has, it's over 1 billion people. So the huge opportunity for Hollywood films to make a lot of money, specifically just with China alone. But the thing is, China has a lot of protectionist policies for its own movie industry. So they set the number. There's a cap on the number of foreign films every single year that China is going to allow to be shown. All right. However, you can actually get around that quota by being considered, in the eyes of the Chinese government, a Chinese film yourself. There are a few ways to do that. You could partner with a Chinese production firm. You can have filmed locate like scenes in China, or you could have Chinese talent in the film. Okay, these things will let you get around the quota, so you can guarantee your spot in Chinese theaters. So it's not as common now, but for a while there were films and there would just be like random Chinese character. Independence Day 2 is a great example of that. I think like Angela Baby is in that one, or we have this random scene where now everyone's in Hong Kong or Shanghai. I think there are Mission Impossible scenes like that. That's exact. So what they're trying to do there is they're trying to ensure that they are guaranteed to have a spot in Chinese theaters. So now you know that. And I think that's also like the reliance on the foreign box office. I think is also why we don't really see a lot of comedies anymore. I love comedy films. I grew up in kind of a golden age of comedy films. I mean, this is when Will Ferrell, his latest films have not been good, but he had a lot of hits, especially when I was a kid, like Talladega Nights, hilarious. Kicking and Screaming, less known, still hilarious. But like the thing with humor is it's so culture specific, right? Even British humor and American humor is not the same. And so that's why I think like Hollywood doesn't really bother as much as they used to, because like, I don't know, are you going to be able to have Japanese and British and Chinese people laughing at all your jokes? Probably not. Humor is not universal at all. Yeah, Breaking Cake, Tropic Thunder. Like that's a great movie, would never in a million years be made today. Axel Foley missed the Rush Hour comedy era. Oh, so good. So good. Okay, so let's talk about the fraud issue before we go into our just kind of like little clip responses. So Nick Shirley, he's gotten a lot of national attention, I think rightfully so, for trying to expose how much fraud there has been. Especially in the medical industry. I mean, we always hear that like US doesn't have any of these like social safety nets, whatever it may be. However, simultaneously, it's like there's like tens of billions of dollars that are just going missing in all of these programs. So clearly American taxpayers are funding social safety nets, including things like publicly funded daycares, but it's not actually going to the people it's meant to be helping, because it turns out a lot of it is just being embezzled away by fraudsters. So Senate Republicans, according to Grok, accused Jack Smith of reviewing lawmakers' text despite testimony. Okay, hang on. That's not the right. Hang on. Okay, let me search it. So Rand Paul, he tried to get a hearing together covering the fraud issue, and he invited Nick Shirley to testify. No Democrats showed up. He also had, here we have James O'Keefe was also testifying.
Senator Scott.
Chairman, wouldn't a Democrat go next since the Republican just testified?
If there were a Democrat here, yes.
So there's no.
And we can see that there's literally 0 Democrats seated during this hearing. They just decided not to go entirely.
Present at a hearing about fraud.
There doesn't appear to be a great deal of interest across the aisle. Senator Scott.
Like, and so why is that? Like, explain to me why that is. Again, I understand why they don't like, they don't like shutting down USAID, because I mean, a lot of that money, as I said, I think it's just going to fraud. But at least on its surface, we're trying to fund Nicaraguan gay Sesame Street, whatever it may be. What is the leftist reason for not wanting to investigate the fraud that Nick Shirley talks about? Like when you have a daycare with like literally 0 kids, what is the leftist reason for not saying, hey, we should have an investigation into that? Yeah, it's Rand Paul. In my office, I keep a clock that tracks our national debt in real time. This morning, it read nearly $40 trillion. Washington taxes you, borrows against your grandchildren, then sends billions out the door without knowing who receives it or if any service was ever performed. No private business survives that way. The government shouldn't either. We have Nick Shirley speaking on the issue at the hearing.
Through my efforts, I've exposed billions of dollars of fraud and helped save America hundreds of billions for years to come. When we talk about fraud, we are talking about money that is being stolen from hardworking, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. This issue has nothing to do with political parties. No dollar says Republican or Democrat on it. When a fraudster commits fraud, he or she steals from all of us. Through my efforts, I've exposed billions.
Yeah. Okay, so we have in the chat, because it's false, apparently why leftists don't care about this. There was an investigation for the daycare centers. It's been proven false. That's not true, actually. There have actually been like charges laid against Somalis who have embezzled like billions of dollars. So it's not false. It's actually true. Nick Shirley is a joke. Well, you don't have to like him specifically, but again, like the DOJ has now taken action against some of these rings for fraud. TV Smoke, where is the proof? Well, the DOJ has a whole new fraud division that actually is now starting to prosecute people. Yeah, National Fraud Enforcement Division is what it's called. Putting their full weight, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so there is now, like, it's not just Nick Shirley. That's the thing. There's actually, like, the DOJ is trying to crack down on this, but you know, in terms of Nick Shirley, you should be asking why it's dependent on Nick Shirley to expose all of this. Like, he is just one 20-year-old with a YouTube camera. Why are none of the government agencies that exist to oversee this type of thing actually being good stewards with your taxes? All right. I mean, the IRS has no problem coming after people for like $600, but billions could just go missing. And no one in the government seems to care about that. It really seems like the people in the government, they're basically only invested in enforcing the law if there's a possibility that you broke it. But if like the criminal masterminds who are stealing billions of dollars, they could just do whatever. It's fine. No one cares. Or investigative journalism, right? I mean, all of the CNNs, New York Times of the world, long time ago, it used to be on them. They actually used to be conducting research into this instead of just reporting on what the government releases as press conference. They actually used to do investigations by themselves. It's basically fake now. Let's see. Okay, hang on. I'm getting some links for our little chatter. A disproportionate amount of these people are Okay, so Somali intelligence helps U.S. arrest alleged leader of Minnesota fraud. U.S. prosecutors reach into Somalia for a suspect in U.S. fraud case. This is a specific one. This is the one that's like in the headlines now because it was like recently. Yeah, Abdulkarim El-Dehe, 42, taken into custody. His capture is a clearer sign yet that the pursuit of those behind the scheme has gone international. He was arrested in Mogadishu. Alleged that they built a scheme around Feeding Our Future, a Minnesota nonprofit that channeled federal money meant to feed needy children during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this stuff is real. Sorry, I wasn't sharing screen. I don't know why you wouldn't want more investigations into this. Yeah, so yeah, fraud is happening. This is just one example. Why, like, if you're for taxpayer dollars going to NGOs, charities, and stuff like that, you should also, even if you don't think there's any fraud, you should want investigations just to make sure. Does that not make sense? I don't know. Does that not make sense? All right. So hang on. Let's go over some of our videos to respond to now. So there's been, if you're interested in crime chats, if you're interested in crime stats like I am, okay, we got a raid. Is there, quartering sends, hats off to the quartering. Hello, Rumble folks. Good to have you here. So if you're interested in crime stats like I am, you'll know that there's a very curious phenomenon going on where it seems like a lot of criminals who are arrested or even convicted are being booked as white when they are not in fact white. So what's going on there? Well, Department of Deportations, an account I highly recommend, they explained, we have discovered that Florida reports all Hispanic sex offenders as white on the sex offender registry. This significantly skews sex offender statistics, as Florida has the third largest Hispanic sex offender population in America after Texas and Arizona. So why? I mean, some pushback here. It says Hispanic is not a race, it's an ethnicity, and law enforcement doesn't have any option but to place Hispanics under white unless they identify as Black, Asian, Native American, or Hawaiian Pacific Islander, only available options. And I think this is a problem, right? There are more races than like just Black, Asian, white, Native American, Hawaiian. Like Hispanic should be its own. And even like classifying Asians like just Japanese, Indian, Middle Eastern, that also doesn't make sense. Okay, so apparently the OMB released guidance 2 years ago requiring Hispanic and MENA to be listed as a separate race. That's good. So Middle Eastern and North African is separate and Hispanic is also separate. But Asian, I think that leaves Asian still being way too broad. Like huge difference between Japanese or an Indian. So Somali is not a race. Well, they're booked under, if the new classification is true, they'd be Middle East and North Africa. No, Black. But see, I don't even, that's a good point. Somalis should not be booked under the same category as just like Black Americans, because then that's going to skew. It's going to make Somali Americans or Somalis specifically seem better than they are in comparison by kind of like hiding how even compared to like the Black population, the prevalence of fraud is way disproportionate for Somalis specifically. Yeah. So that's a thing. I like, however skewed the crime stats are in terms of like Black people being overrepresented, Hispanic people overrepresented in crimes, it's actually, the real picture would be worse because there are people being booked as white who are not actually white. And I think it's on purpose, honestly, to a certain extent. They are trying to, like, if the average person knew how skewed the crime stats were, their political opinions would be very different. Very, very different. Oh yeah, so this is kind of funny. People have noticed. So the Netflix description of Gone with the Wind is the most amazing synopsis of all time. You guys know Gone with the Wind. It's a very, very famous movie, historical. And this is what Netflix describes it as: a 1939 American Civil War epic known for its racism. What? To learn more about Black lives in America, search Black Lives Matter. So you can't even give a description now of Gone with the Wind without trying to promote Black Lives Matter? Really? That's insane. Okay, so we have more to look at, but first I do want to say a big thank you to Native Path for sponsoring this video and their Antarctic krill oil. So you guys may know that in October of last year, I put out a post, and this is public, so you know I'm not lying, complaining about my tendonitis in my foot. Okay, it had been going on in May of this year. It was officially a year where I had foot pain that sometimes prevented me from walking properly. I was hobbling. Okay. Not good, not what you want. You go online, look up like, okay, what do I do with tendonitis? They're going to say rest it, ice it. That's basically it. And it's on my foot, so I can't really stop walking for days. It's not realistic. So for the longest time, I was wearing a foot brace at night. Nothing was helping. Guys, within a month of me taking this, better. I help the inflammation. What can I say? So I will now be singing these little pills, their praises for the rest of my life. So you got omega-3s as well as astaxanthin. And if you're someone who's like really into fish oil, what you need to know is that krill oil is actually, there's more bioavailability of everything that's good for you than something like fish oil. Fish oil, it's triglycerides, whereas Antarctic krill oil, they're actually phospholipids, which are what your cell walls are made of. So there's more absorbability with krill oil. So you're going to be getting better results with actually a lower dose. So highly recommend if you're experiencing inflammation or chronic pain, give it a shot. You can go to getkrill.com/Lauren. You're going to get free shipping and a discount. Again, that is getkrill.com/Lauren. If you want to improve your health in a simple way, taking 1 or 2 of these a day is a great way to do that. There's no fishy tastes or fishy burps, thankfully. And yeah, they really have helped me. So very, very appreciative to Native Path for sponsoring this video. And if you've been looking for a way to support the streams, getting your krill oil at getkrill.com/Lauren is a great way to do that. So big ups to Native Path. All right. So oh yeah, so this also probably one of my favorite stories this week. Visegrad 24, they say an American transsexual man who applied for asylum in the Netherlands due to oppression in Trump's America has been placed in the infamous asylum center Ter Apel, famous for Islamic extremism and knife violence. He says he regrets his decision. Okay, so imagine how woke you need to be trans and think that it's a good idea to apply for asylum because it's too dangerous to be trans in America. That's how woke this woke man is. But apparently not woke enough to tolerate living with Middle Eastern migrants. It's hilarious. You love to see it. Let's listen to this interview.
Between here and there is a bunch of Algerians and Moroccans or whoever who think that queer people should be beaten. I think
Algerians or Moroccans or whatever. Like, I love that. So put the wokest trans activists you can find in a migrant center for 2 weeks and suddenly they're coming out looking like Hitler. Hilarious. You love to see it. You love to see it. So what I want to know is, like, does this he, him, she, or whatever alphabet individual still support open borders, or have they gotten a little bit of a taste of the real world? I want to know.
that this system where you have people just living out here that are unhappy is not good.
Yeah. And do you think it's safe here?
No, I don't see it.
Oh, it's scary. It's legitimately scary. I decided that my mental health is degrading so substantially being here that I just need to get out. And the situation that I have in the US as a trans person, not good, right? But here I will be hurt or killed.
Yeah, I mean, you can complain about, like, oh, America isn't accommodating enough when I want to go by Zer and change my biological sex on my passport. This is a good wake-up call, okay? This is actually what oppression and anti-LGBT sentiment looks like, okay? People are mentioning the chat. It's, yes, similar to the gay cruise that they were sailing around the middle, the Mediterranean, tried to dock in Turkey and Egypt for some reason and were shocked when they were like, actually, this is a gay cruise. I don't want this. Like, yeah. Okay. Yes, this is what Islam is like. This is what Islam is like. So I don't know. Maybe you need to re-examine your insistence on promoting Islam over Christianity if you are a trans progressive. Anything you don't like about Christianity, I guarantee you, worse with Islam. And not that I'm even trying to hate on Turkey and Egypt for refusing them the ability to dock. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, this gay sex cruise wants to come into our country. No, thank you. That's reasonable to me. So I side with Egypt and Turkey there. Like, I don't, that's just gross. You don't want that. What's funny is, like, how many gay men were shocked. Like, what? Like, yeah. So maybe next time you hate on America for being, quote, intolerant, you'll have a different baseline to operate under, and you'll realize that America is, like, literally one of the most tolerant places you could be. So that's kind of funny, though. That's funny. And can you imagine if you're Dutch and you have, like, American trans individuals showing up for asylum and you have Muslims, and it's like, why? I don't know. If I'm Dutch, I'm just like, I don't want any of these people in my country. So apologies to Dutch sane people. These are the migrants you're getting. Enjoy. Okay, yeah. So we have an update on the case. So apparently people keep trying to run over ICE. Not a good plan. Don't run over anybody. Don't use your vehicle as a weapon. A bad idea, but especially, like, if you're being confronted by law enforcement, don't try to ram them because they will shoot you. As we've seen several times at this point. And initially, after another person, I think a man, was killed during a traffic stop. I think this was in Maine. It was being reported that ICE would no longer be conducting traffic stops. People were upset by that. Now it seems like that's been reversed. They will continue the traffic stops. My advice there is, don't come to a country illegally, but also don't try to run over anybody. Like, that's really important information that I feel like the media is not doing a good enough job promoting.
The decision was made by the secretary along with leadership at ICE. But look, it's not a policy change. It's a temporary pause. Look, we had the last couple of shootings. ICE leadership, along with DHS, believes they want to look at these last a couple of incidents and look, is there something that could have been done better? Is there any training that can be improved? Or it's simply ICE doing their job and bad things happen when people don't comply with law enforcement officers. So I think it's going to be a short pause. And I'm confident that ICE is well trained in vehicle stops, and you're going to see us keep moving forward. But this is
Electronic Man, do you truly believe they were trying to run over agents? Well, I think whether they were trying to do that or not, that was in practice what they were doing. Like Renee Good, I don't think she wanted to run over the ICE agent, but she was not in control of her vehicle. I think she was trying to get away from him, and she did run him over a little bit. That's still not an excuse, right? We can't it's not a good position to be like, okay, well, after the fact, after the agent's already been run over, then we can kind of ask about, did you mean to do that or not? Was that just a whoopsie doopsie? It's not, yeah. Say torture camp, vehicular homicide, but mostly peaceful protests. Dan 9847, Renee Good's wife should have been charged for convincing her to drive off. Yeah, we see in the footage, the wife was like, go, baby, go, go. And I think Renee Good, like, she panicked. And she definitely hit him with her car. Like 100% hit him with her car. See, Warner 312, agents don't know what your intentions are. If you accelerate the vehicle in their direction and actually hit them, as has been the case, like with the Renee Good, it's not that, oh, she was heading toward me, she hit him. Yeah, they have to assume the worst. Like a car is a deadly weapon when you're driving it at someone, 100%. So yes, don't try to ram people with your car. Don't accidentally ram people with your car, whatever it may be. Just don't do it. Okay. Here we have a new contender for Lol Cal of the Week. I think I'm going to give it to this lady. She says Black people are just being lynched all over the country.
Black people are being lynched all around the country right now. They are being found hanging from trees in public spaces. They're also going missing. They're also being murdered in lots of other ways as well. And I can assure you, there is no debate here. No debate whatsoever. Black people do not hang themselves from trees in public. That is not a debate. That is not the world we live in. Don't even try. Now, instead of giving high-level details about all of...
Okay, so I know there's two cases that I can think of off the top of my head where Black people were found hanging by nooses in public areas and they were ruled suicide. Now, I think, like, obviously, let's explore what actually happened, but it's really interesting to me, the assumption here that, oh, this has to be obviously a lynching versus a suicide. Like what? You really think that, like, white people are just stringing up Black people in trees for no, like, just because even like I've looked into some of the lynchings. I'm not saying lynchings are a good thing, but oftentimes it's because a crime was actually committed and then they lynched the person responsible for it. I'm still not supporting vigilante justice and lynch, blah, 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 blah. Disclaimer. But it's like, even in the past, they weren't just randomly killing Black people. Thank goodness. Why would you think that's happening today? What?
The people in all of the situations, I recommend, honestly, just leave this video if you feel like it and go to Black creators that are talking about it. They're going to have way better insight on this situation than I am. However, there are things that I can talk about as a white human being on the internet. And that's the privilege that I have when I walk into a room or I enter a situation that Black people simply don't have. And I can use that privilege to support the Black community. And so can you. So if you look like me,
I think we're past this. I've started to see on TikTok and Instagram white women kind of like exhibiting fatigue, being tired about like, oh, Black women's spaces, blah, blah, blah. I've seen videos, white women ragging on that stuff. So I think like when you're even losing the white woman audience, not this one, obviously, she seems to still be like knee deep in the Kool-Aid. That's when you know things are bad. That's when you know we're past this. We are past peak woke. And it's like, what is with the atrocity propaganda again? It's like these people, they want They want Black people to just be living in the worst hell. They want it to be true that white people were eating Black people as cannibals. They want it to be true that Black people are still being strung up for no, thank goodness. Why do you want those things to be true? That those people that were found hanging in the streets, I get 2 cases that I could think of. It's awful that they're dead, but I don't want it to be the case that they were actually murdered. It's a terrible thing. There's nothing to support that.
Let's have a conversation real quick. When I walk into an establishment, I am not immediately judged as somebody who is lesser than, who is going to steal, who is going to harm somebody, who is probably carrying a weapon. That doesn't typically happen, but that does.
I love how she throws in lesser than, which is just like a moral judgment. Like, you just think Black people are worse versus, and then she lists all these things that are statistically likely to be true for a Black person, a Black male versus a white woman. Like, she's basically mad about pattern recognition. And these activists, they want to act like it's worse to be cautious against like a Black man wearing a hoodie than it is for actual Black men wearing hoodies to gun down disproportionately other Black men. It's like, you're never going to convince me that's right. You're never going to convince me that causing offense is a bigger problem than actual violent crime. I don't care. I don't care. I'm sorry. It's like, in Asia, Hong Kong, it's very safe. It's very safe. You may complain that like, oh, but Chinese might profile, like, yeah, but no one's getting killed. And it's like, yeah, if you're a Black person, maybe you're going to have some off the color comments, but what's not going to happen to you? You're not going to get shot by another Black person. You're not going to get involved in like gang violence. So just chill. Just chill. Like these people will complain about like basic pattern recognition, but will do nothing to actually address the behaviors that cause those patterns to be real.
Happen with Black people. So I have that privilege of walking into somewhere and people not immediately seeing me as a threat. And when I see somebody assuming a Black person is a threat, I have the ability to physically put myself in that situation in between the two to either de-escalate it or to push that focus onto me rather than them.
This is okay. So you guys remember that video where there was an African migrant who was masturbating on this beach in Italy in front of kids, and all of these Italian men started beating the crap out of him. Good job, men. And this white woman comes and like literally uses her own body as a shield to block the Black pervert. This is what this woman is talking about. Like 100%, she would actually do that. She put herself in oh no, please don't harm this like poor Black person. To do that. Like, oh my goodness, you are the reason why society is failing. I'm sorry, but women like this, liberal women like this, it's a problem. It is a problem. Not only do they vote against like our best interests as society, but they also, when things are actually happening that are good, like, okay, yes, beat the crap out of the rapist, beat the crap out of the pedophile. They're just like, no, but what about the poor Black person? Like, you are subversive. You are sinister. It's a suicidal empathy. Yeah, 100%.
This can happen in a situation where a police officer is involved and that police officer is kind of being weird, kind of looking at people weird. This can happen in a situation where there are microaggressions, where there's racism, where an establishment is just like, people are following Black people around the grocery store, whatever it is.
And she's more concerned about Black people being followed in a grocery store, which like is uncomfortable maybe, but doesn't hurt them. Instead of actually like, hey, let's address the fact that Black neighborhoods do have huge amounts of theft that force these stores to close, right? One of them is like, oh, I care about Black people's feelings. The other is like, actually, let's care about Black people's lives, Black people's neighborhoods, Black people's safety. It's really weird. It's really strange, the hierarchy of needs that progressives have. Because again, I don't give a damn if someone is offended, if someone's like, what are you treating? Like, let's actually make things safe for people, including Black people, including Black businesses, and like put aside the feelings. That's what's the most important. Outcomes are the most important. Actions are the most important. Let's stop the theft. Let's stop the shooting. Let's stop the violence. And then we can worry about whose feelings we're hurting, maybe if we have time before we go home.
there's lots of situations that pop up every single day. The second you walk outside, it'll probably happen. You have the ability to physically put yourself in that situation and to, again, either de-escalate or have the escalation moved towards you. The focus is now on you, the person who is.
Okay, so if there are any liberal white women listening, don't do this. For the love of God, do not do this. If you see law enforcement or someone talking to a black person, do not try to escalate in your direction. Like that's Renee Good. She's dead. This is dumb. That's dumb. Mind your business. Don't commit crime. Stay out of it.
Probably not going to get harmed or go to jail or get shot dead because they decided to have a confrontation. That situation is a hard reality for Black people all around the country, all around the world. White supremacy is getting worse and worse. And what I mean by that, it's already existed. It's existed for forever. But the openness of white supremacy and racism is astronomically bad right now. And if you,
I'm sure this is the type of person who, when she thinks of like white racism and white supremacy, she basically probably means sharing crime statistics, addressing the fact that like Black neighborhoods are disproportionately criminal, people talking about fatigue. That's probably what she views as white supremacy.
you have any heart, if you are white and you have the ability to stand up for the Black community, you better fucking do it, because white supremacy is going to keep getting worse. And if it keeps getting normalized because nobody's saying anything or doing anything or redirecting things towards them where it's not a dangerous situation anymore, then Black people are going to keep being found fucking hanging from trees.
Okay, so again, 2 Black people found hanging from trees. Police are saying that it's suicide in both cases. Investigate if there's any sign of foul play. Obviously, whoever, like, if there was someone who killed them, doesn't look like, but if there was, put him in jail, whatever. But she's like, if we don't stop, Black people are going to be found dead. There's 2. She's making this video over 2 Black people found dead, suicides. What about all of the Black people who are dead because another Black person killed them? What about like all the white people, the Asian people who are dead because Black people kill? Like, why is the only time where you seemingly care about Black lives or about a lack of violence when it is when it comes to maybe a white person was involved in harming this Black person? Why? It's because you don't actually care about Black lives. You just care about virtue signaling. You just care about hating white people, trying to prove that you're one of the good ones. You're not in favor of white supremacy. No one is helped, meaning like no one is helped by this type of rhetoric. This is the type of rhetoric that just makes Black neighborhoods less and less safe. Sensei of Song, if they gave really gave a crap about Black lives, every weekend in Chicago, 70 people would not be getting shot by Blacks. Yes, like 100%. 100%. Gray Force 11, Black people were shot in New York City this week. And what's really interesting is that I saw a graph looking at, I think it was specifically New York City shootings. There we go. Basically, it's just Black on Black, right? It's just Black people shooting other Black people. Sometimes a white person or a Hispanic person is involved, but that's basically what it is. And it's like, it's normalized, right? It's almost like in America, it's just accepted and okay. And just part of how things are that Black people are going to shoot other Black people. And we just don't talk about it. It's fine. It's almost like what the Joker said in Dark Knight. It's only when things go off script that people freak out. Wait, hang on, a white person maybe killed a Black person? Whoa, that's not supposed to happen. That's not okay. It's not because it's worse. It's just because it's different. And I guess in the minds of these leftists, it's worse. But like, if I actually care about violence, I think everybody should have the right to safety, including Black people, including Black neighborhoods, including Black children who are sometimes shot and killed by gang activity. I don't care if the people who are doing the violence happen to be Black. I still think it's wrong. I still think they belong in prison. CIA torture camp. Liberal women should be sent to the third world to police microaggressions there or send them to boot camp. Yep, 100%. All right. Oh, okay. So here we have Miley Cyrus. And she's talking about why
Black
her previous
people
relationships
are being lynched all around the country.
Pause. So Miley Cyrus, she's a bit of a wild one. And I don't know if you guys remember when she was, I think, newly 18, 19, 20, she, it seemed, made a concerted effort to be as provocative and promiscuous as possible. I think to like shed her Disney persona entirely. And so she was, appearing with very little clothing, if any, doing all these ridiculous things. And I think this was simultaneously when she was with Liam Hemsworth for a little bit. She's spoken about how he did not like that persona, that side of her. And here I was kind of impressed because she spoke about the consequences of her actions on her relationships maybe in this interview. And I thought it was surprisingly introspective. So let's watch it.
It was really hard for me in 2013, and I lost everything during that time in my personal life because of the choices I was making professionally. If I kept dressing or acting a certain way, my relationships fell apart. No one wanted to date me because they didn't want to be with a woman. That sexual expression part was not for them. It was like shared with the world. So like guys, when I would try to date, when I was dating or who I was engaged at the time, that didn't work out because I was sharing a part of myself that men wanted to be saved for them only. And the fact that I would, pose nude or dance in very little clothes or show my body was making them feel like I was taking something away that was meant to be for them. So I would have really...
I just thought this was a really interesting way to frame it. And because like clearly she disagrees with what, but I just thought it was interesting and introspective and kind of fair, honestly, to her exes, that she didn't frame things as they were trying to control me, they were insecure. And basically we've heard all of the feminist justifications for why men are bad for not wanting promiscuous women. And I just thought here she does she's explaining it in a relatively neutral way. She's not like, oh, it's just because you want to control me, you're in, like, whatever it is. And I just thought that showed a lot of maturity. I don't know if that makes sense, but I watched this and I was like, actually, she's being pretty fair. And she's also, she's also realizing that these were her actions that were causing issues instead of just like, well, the patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that she's not, obviously this is Miley Cyrus, she's still a raging feminist. But I think she does a good job here identifying how her own actions were leading to chaos in her life instead of just blaming everyone else.
Really hard times dating, and it was really hard. It was really hard for me to go home and see my dad and like look him in the eyes and not feel super embarrassed. Same thing.
I just have to ask then why she was still doing that. Like if this behavior is being so detrimental to your life, it's causing issues with your romantic partner, it's causing issues with your family, why still do it? Why still do it? Breaking K, she's showing self-awareness, which is rare these days. Yes, 100%.
My grandmother was like my grandmother is my best friend. She's dead, but she's still my best friend. And I was like, oh God, this is going to kill her, because my grandma is like, again, you talked about your mom. My grandma grew up in an age of like, it was super. I mean, she was in an abusive relationship for half of her life and wouldn't have left, just because that wouldn't be the right thing to do as a woman.
Yeah.
So, so having that and going home and seeing my grandparents was just mortifying, or Thanksgiving.
I felt that way.
And maybe I'm too Asian, but I just feel like if your behavior is causing so much shame for your family, your grandparents, your parents, change your behavior. I don't know. So it's interesting to me. I have always assumed that people who behave like Miley Cyrus behaved in the 2013 whatever era, it's because they couldn't feel shame. But apparently she was feeling shame, but she was just choosing to do that anyway. And that to me is strange. Conic 40 on Kick. How did she get that voice? I think she's just really loud. She's been on Joe Rogan and she's addressed how she's had like vocal issues and I think some surgeries. And it's just, I think it's just because she's super loud because she's only my age. So not that I'm young, but presumably it's not like she's been smoking a pack of Luckies for 3 decades or something like that.
When the Star Report came out, where it was just like, it had been bad enough with men in general, but in particular, my dad and my brother and my stepdad of, just that all these things were out there. And my dad's a doctor and he still went to work every day.
Right.
And my brother was in college.
It's just hard.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel, I still feel guilt. I still sometimes carry guilt.
And I've seen a previous interview where Miley Cyrus was talking about how her siblings felt ashamed of going to school because of all the crazy stuff she was doing. And again, like, she understands that it was her actions that were causing her siblings to be unhappy, which is good introspection. But it's just, why then would you continue to behave in that way? That's what I don't understand. I don't know. Sinaz Rumble, does she have any kids? I don't think so. But I guess, small W, surprising W for Miley Cyrus in recognizing how her own behavior was destructive for her life. The biggest W would have been like if she actually changed her behavior based on that. And I say that, I don't think she's as crazy now. I'm not a Miley Cyrus fan, but I don't see as much of her behind as I used to on my social media feed. So I think she's relatively calmed down. I don't know. Right, last story I want to go over, and this is a pretty it's a terrifying one. Again, Brianna Morello, follow her if you don't already. She says 2 gay men in Canada are suing their surrogate after she refused to have an abortion once she learned the baby would have a cleft lip. The gay men are suing the surrogate reportedly for $600,000 after she denied their request to abort their now 2-year-old son over his birth defect. The surrogate said she did not want to abort a 22-week-old fetus for what she thought was a cosmetic birth defect. The men stopped speaking to her after the child's birth. When she asked for $10,000 in reimbursements, they did not respond, which resulted in her filing a small claims report, which she later found out she couldn't due to their contract. So the gay men slapped her allegedly with a $600,000 lawsuit. So this is horrifying. For surrogacy is evil. Let's be clear. Surrogacy is evil, especially commercial surrogacy, which is outlawed in most of the world. Okay. A lot of the developed world, most of the developed world actually ban surrogacy to varying degrees. Some places you can do surrogacy, but not commercially. It's more like, someone and there's like no financial incentive. You're just doing family, whatever. But they definitely ban surrogacy because they see it for what it is, and that's human trafficking. So surrogacy is a moral evil. Less so, I think, if it's like, let's say your brother and his wife cannot conceive naturally, so they want you to be a surrogate for them. That, I'm not going to pretend, is the same situation as these 2 gay men who want to buy a woman's baby. Okay. These are different situations. I think you can oppose both of them, but I'm not going to pretend that they're the same level of like moral depravity. This issue here, like gay men who are so upset that their own child was not aborted, the child who is now born and presumably healthy and thriving, because you can do surgeries to fix a cleft lip. Doesn't mean you have to kill your child. Now this woman is being sued for refusing to abort her child. We are seeing levels of degeneracy and depravity that our ancestors could not have fathomed would be happening, but also worse than that, being normalized. So I think if you are contributing to, the commodification of not only babies, but also women's bodies, you're knowingly signing up a child to grow up without a mother. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. And I hope that something is done about this, because like babies, children in general, they're the most marginalized and powerless group in society. And it seems like we are forever throwing them under the bus in order to cater to the whims of adults, which is like, children have a right to a mother and father, but as adults, you do not have a right to a baby. A baby is a person. You do not have a right to have one. And it's just upsetting. It's just upsetting. And of course, this is a story that comes to us from Canada, which is like, almost always at the center of every single moral travesty you can think of in this day and age. All right, I think that's going to be it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. Don't forget, next stream is Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. We're going to be talking about the Odyssey. We're going to do spoilers because it's the Odyssey, right? It's been out for like thousands of years at this point. If you don't know what happens in it, I don't know what to tell you. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will see you real soon. OSS Ninja, Lauren, do a 4-hour stream. Okay, if I'm ever in a position where like I don't have kids running around for an extended period of time, maybe a 4-hour stream. But as it stands, usually I have to get back to the babos. GST DeAndre, thanks, Lauren. Nice to see the bangs again. Why, thank you. All right, take care, you guys. See you soon.